If
Yeah.
you're in a situation that is so heated that you know your response is not going to be productive, walk away. Come back and revisit it another time when you're calm and able to do something that's productive. Some of the women have probably figured out a little bit more how to get under my skin, and so I definitely lose my temper a little more in more recent years, which I'm not proud of, you know?
We're so excited to have you on the show, Meredith. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Meredith, for all of those who do not know, for some reason, Meredith Marks is a beloved cast member of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And on top of that, she is the owner of Meredith Marks Jewelry and semi-newly, right? Meredith Marks Caviar. When did you start
Yes.
that?
Last summer,
Okay, so it is
and
new.
it's new. It's been really fun, a little bit different than jewelry, but still luxury, of
Yeah.
course. Leave it to me to find the luxury food space.
Yeah. Hey, it fits with your brand, you know? So it all fits perfectly.
It fits perfectly for me because I mean I eat caviar all day, every day, so I'm happy about it. It's working for my own personal reasons.
I think people will be really interested. Like, what made you decide to go on the show?
Honestly, like I had never watched, I didn't really know. I'd watch very little reality television and um, predominantly like business news when I have
Yeah.
the TV on. So I didn't really know exactly what I was getting into, which was probably good because I'm not sure I would have done it if I had known. It's intense, it's a lot.
I'm sure.
Um, but I kind of dove in head first. Everyone around me was like, just do it. A lot of people never get the opportunity. And once you pass, you can't really look back. So
Yeah.
I did.
Would you say overall that you're happy with that decision? Or at times are you kind of like, what have I gotten myself into?
I mean, both, like it's a love-hate relationship. There are so many things that are so incredible and positive about what we do. And then you have moments where you are just like, I cannot believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And it's also it's a lot. It's very daunting to like put yourself out there publicly. And I was a super, super private person prior to this, like probably unusually so.
Yeah.
And so that was like a really big change for me. Seeing the whole world just know about my life was bizarre. But
Yeah.
we get so many positive things from it. There are so many amazing things, so many lessons that I've learned through this whole process. I mean, as I've said many times, I do attribute the show to saving my marriage in many, many ways.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a major positive, that you can't like look back on and say, oh, I regret it.
Yeah.
Like that alone kind of says, well, I guess it was something I had to do. But yeah,
Yeah.
of course there are days where you're just over it too. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Absolutely. So you touched on this, but what would you say has been your biggest takeaway from maybe from the show or just from this like rise to celebrity that I don't know, maybe you anticipated, but maybe not?
Um, I think for both, it's really about being very aware of your communication and what you mean to say and saying what you really mean and um, being introspective from it. It's wild because we do things all day long, every single day that we don't even think twice about, and we kind of just move on. It's done, this, that, and the other. And when you go through this process, you realize that sometimes the way people interpret the things you say is very different from how you meant it. Or
Yeah.
you realize that you're saying things in a way that's being, that's coming across not how you you're actually projecting it the wrong way as opposed to someone
Yeah.
receiving it wrong. This, that, and the other. To me, it's like a full study in communication. It's wild. It's really, really
Yeah.
wild.
I feel like everyone on a reality show becomes this sort of expert in communication because you have to be so careful, like you're saying, about your tone, about how you say things, who you say them to. Do you have any like concrete tips that now being on the show for 4 years you are like, "These are my strategies on how to communicate as best as possible"?
I wish I went back to some of my own strategies a little more often. You know, I I get a lot of criticism, not so much from the public, but more from my own castmates about disengaging. And to me, that's like one of the best things I did do and put out into the universe, which is, if
Yeah.
you're in a situation that is so heated that your response is not going to be productive, walk away, come back and revisit it another time when you're calm and able to do something that's productive. And I was really good with that, in the earlier years. And I feel like some of the women have probably figured out a little bit more how to get under my skin. And so I definitely lose my temper a little more in more recent years, which I'm not proud of.
Yeah, but I think overall that is a wonderful tip. I think it's just like you said about actually being able to do it in the moment because we're just like very reactionary as people. And it makes us feel good sometimes just to let it out.
Yes. Yes. The problem is that usually when you're just letting it out, your words are going to do more damage than good, because
True.
usually you're saying things that you don't really mean that you might be feeling in the moment, but those
Yeah.
are passing feelings, but the words never go away once you say
That's very true. Has there ever been a time where you're like, I'm happy that I didn't disengage?
them. Yes, I'm sure there is. I just can't really think of it off the top of my head. I
It's
mean,
kind of a
there's
loaded question.
yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, there are definitely times where things have gotten volatile and angry and hostile that maybe that just kind of needed to happen to get to some sort of resolve.
Yeah.
Um, but I can't think off the top of my head which ones those would be because
Yeah.
I feel like resolve, especially in our group, tends to be a bit of a ongoing process, and it seems like it's rare that at least from what I see, really that anyone's just like, "Oh, we've made up, we're moving on, we're good," and that's that. Like, usually it takes a few tries.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Disengaging is not a bad thing. It is not a bad
It
thing.
sounds like, as a general rule, disengagement has worked out better for you maybe than letting your emotions get the best of you.
Yes, for sure.
I think that's beautiful advice for a lot of people. We also love asking on the show the question of the show, which I am so anxious to hear your answer, is do you have a best piece of advice? It can be about anything, truly, that you've ever gotten that has really stuck with you.
I would say like the best piece of advice is to actually like seize your mistakes as an opportunity and learn from them.
Hmm.
We all make mistakes. We're all human. Unfortunately, I've made many, and
As we all
and you
have.
can beat yourself up over it, and really lose sleep and whatever else, or you can take from it what you can actually learn, do better.
Are there specific scenarios in your life where you feel like you've done that successfully?
I think that how we handle each thing is um almost always learn from our mistakes. I think like I mean, just even when in my relationships, even just on the show, like you learn from, okay, I had this horrible fight with whoever because I hit a trigger for them. We
Yeah.
don't mean to like for example, like with Lisa, and I can look back and retrospectively see the things that I did wrong that incited the situation to escalate it to where it was.
Yeah.
You know, we both have a hand in it. It's not a relationship is never one-sided, and yes, many times one person's more right than wrong or whatever else, but, we all have a hand in where these things go, and so, like, for example, with her, I could have, taken the feelings that she was having. I think she felt very almost abandoned by me as a friend in certain ways, and not saying her feelings were, you know I would not have felt the same way under those same circumstances, but she did.
Yeah.
And I could have headed that off and done things better so that we didn't escalate to the point we did. I've learned from that. I know, and so,
Yeah.
I take that, I say, "Okay, this is what I did wrong the last time. Now, if I wanna have a successful friendship with Lisa this time, I'm gonna make sure she feels supported by me at a much stronger level, at a much clearer level, so that she's not worried that something else is going on when it's."
Absolutely. I think it's like a big sign of more self-actualized person. I think if we're smart, like you said, every decision we make will be influenced by the fact that maybe we made different decisions in the past and they didn't work out well, or we made mistakes, and every decision we make going forward is learned from those mistakes. So I think that's a completely accurate assessment. I think if we're smart, every situation in our lives is that advice in play. I really love that. Do you have a worst piece of advice that you've ever gotten? Or maybe just something
Um,
that just didn't fit for you. Maybe it's not even bad in general, but it just wasn't right for you.
yeah, mean, there's plenty of bad advice out there.
There is.
Uh, there's I mean, I could put it in any realm. I trade stocks every day. Chasing a stock is a really bad idea.
That's
In
good.
fact,
That's
chasing
good. That's what we wanna
anything in
hear.
life is a really bad idea, actually, when you put it in perspective. That's definitely the worst advice. Chasing anything, whether it's a person, a business deal, anything. You have to, let things come to you. And when I say a business deal, I don't mean to like rest on your laurels. Do not misunderstand me. There's a difference between going after something and chasing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say don't chase anything.
You are listening to this podcast, you are probably a fan of inspirational quotes. And if that's the case, then you should check out my book. I feel that it's a cute little retro book with each chapter being a different emotion and then quotes that can help you with that emotion. So if you're looking to support me or the show, if you need a cute little gift for a friend or just something to flip through when you're feeling down one day, then this book is for you. You can purchase it at quotesbychristy.com, which is my website, or the link will be in the show notes. Do you have a biggest, this is going to one of the most challenging parts of your life thus far. And this does not have to be something all of us have seen on Real Housewives. It can be more personal, more business related, but from one of the most challenging times of your life, do you have a biggest takeaway that you've taken from that experience?
You know, I think one of the most challenging times in my life was watching Brooks get trolled during our first season. And it was really rough. It was very difficult. And, it was obviously, as we know, stemming a bit from my own cast and also from just people's own views on certain things in the world. And seeing him struggle with that was very difficult. And so, I would always say, like, I would be like, the most flattering thing you can wear is your confidence. And if you feel good about yourself, what other people think of you isn't going to matter. That was definitely the hardest thing I've dealt with. There's nothing worse than seeing your child struggle.
Do you feel like that added, though, a lot to, like, who you are now as a person? Like, do you feel like you developed certain characteristics that you wouldn't have developed otherwise going through that with him?
100%. I mean, I think any time that we're coming out of something that's difficult, especially when it is, such public judgment, um, we just, it's strength. It's, you know, it- you are forced into a position to find your inner strength. And I find that so much with everything with the show, and being in the public eye. There's so many things that in the past I would have just sort of let go by, this, that, and the other. And you have to be very strong and convicted in who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it I so, like, applauded and admired all, like, the work you've done in the LGBTQIA community, and you really have, like, become such an advocate and become so outspoken about things that are just so wrong in our world today, and things that could be so much easier, especially for kids who are like Brooks was dealing with terrible bullying and just things that like you wouldn't think existed nowadays. But what would you say to other kids who are dealing with this, or maybe other parents who are dealing with their kids being bullied? I can't imagine the pain of that.
The pain is brutal, because everyone just wants to feel accepted and comfortable in their own skin and whatever that means.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the biggest thing I would say, and I say this all the time, and I say this about even interactions with a lot of, the women too, your actions or somebody else's actions for that matter, they speak to who they are, not who you are. And so if somebody's bullying you, that says a lot about them. It says nothing about you, nothing at all. So, I think that's really important, not just say, but to honestly believe and understand that that is true because, you know, we all have moments where we are mistreated and we can't let people get the best of us. We have to take control of who we are and how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so hard though. I feel like I hear that and there's a quote that's similar to that that kind of speaks to the fact that like people will love you, people will hate you, and none of it will have anything to do with you. And I hear that and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that makes me feel so empowered." But isn't it like super hard to actually put into practice because everything feels very personal when it's even remotely directed in your in your like line of interaction.
Yeah, it does feel really personal. I think that there comes a level, and I before I did the show, this is another great like takeaway. I don't kn I would say the same exact thing you're saying, and I think there comes a point where you felt so much public hatred at one point or another for something that you may not have even done anything, like, I get it when you've done something to warrant it or whatever, but most of the time it's over nothing.
Yeah.
Um you start to just say, "I don't care." And you really truly let it go, and it's a release. The best thing is honestly caring about what other people think, other than, of course, like, I care about what my family and my close friends think, but above and beyond that, I really don't. I really don't. If you don't
Do
like
you
me, you don't
feel
like me. That's fine. I'm not for everybody.
Yeah. No, I love that. Do you feel like the show really helped you develop that, like, very strongly?
100%. 100%. I never
It
have been one who was, like, immersed in what people thought. I've never been, like, caught up in all the gossip and this, that, and the other. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But, it's very different. Being able to truly release that, because when you do hear something negative about yourself, it's hard not to take it to heart. And
Yeah.
now I just say what you want. I don't care. I really don't. I know who I am, and I'm happy with it. And that's all. I'm not hurting anybody, at least not intentionally. I'm sorry if I am unintentionally. I'm just trying to live a nice life and enjoy it and do some positive things and have a lot of fun.
Do you feel like at the beginning, maybe it wasn't the case? Like, when you started the show, you started becoming more and more well-known, people say the most insane things. Was it really hard for you at one point, or do you feel like you kind of already started out with this, like, "I'm not I'm gonna disengage"?
No, at the beginning, it was really hard. I mean, yeah, it's really hard when you're first starting to deal with that, especially for us. We were like born in COVID, so everyone was
Yeah.
like very hostile and had
So
nothing to
awesome.
do.
Yeah.
So
A
we
bad
definitely
combination.
had an unusual circumstance, but
Yeah.
and the good news is it could only get better from there.
That's true. You started at the roughest time, so all uphill. Um, I also love how open you've been about like your marriage and the difficulties you've had in your marriage. And I feel like you've done such an amazing job at destigmatizing just issues that happen in normal relationships and long-term marriages, especially. Like they go through ups and downs. And you've been so authentic about it. I wonder what you would tell people who maybe might be going through some similar marital struggles. What is the best piece of advice that you feel like you've gotten as you've gotten to a good place in your marriage?
The first thing I would say is find a great marriage counselor because it's really, really hard to work your way through it without help. Um, and the key is communication, but facilitating that communication is like everything, and finding the right
Yeah.
counselor to do that is not always so easy. We definitely went through several. And it's really easy to just point fingers. You did this, you did that, da 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 da. It doesn't matter. That's not what matters. What matters is if somebody's feeling hurt, that you're listening and that you're absorbing and that you're helping. And you know, getting the right person to facilitate that is everything. And block out the white noise around you. For whatever reason, I've been the most open by far and away in our whole group about my marriage. And for some reason, it becomes a subject of conversation between the other women every single year. It's annoying. And it's like, yeah, you get irritated and maybe angry at times, but like, who cares? At the end of the day, I'm living in my marriage. I'm happy in my marriage. I hope they are too. If they're, that's too bad, but not my problem.
You've also, as everyone has seen, dealt with a lot of scenarios of pretty intense betrayal of your trust. And most people might not have it be that exaggerated or that intense in their lives, but I know a lot of people have had friendships, especially where they feel like they trusted someone and that person really did betray that trust, and yet it seems like you still like have beautiful relationships, you're still able to trust people. How do you come back from those really negative experiences and still say like, no, I'm going to still have an open heart and not let it make my heart hard and make me bitter about people?
That is something I struggle with. And it's something that mm, is, it's hard for me because I'm not the most trusting one to begin with. I've been burned and, over the years, many, many times. And, um, for many, many years, my circle was extremely small for that exact reason. And over the last decade or so, decade and a half, I started to open up my circle again, but I also did it knowing that I had been burned, knowing that I was opening myself up again, and knowing that a lot of people are not very nice. And so, as long as you're aware and you can be somewhat self-protective with it, it's fine. I mean, I also think that not caring so much about what people gets makes it a lot easier because you kind of just don't worry. You're like, okay, so whatever. I told you something in confidence and you repeated it. Okay, once again, thank you for showing me who you are. That speaks to you, not to me.
Yeah.
And lesson learned. And none of it's that deep at the end of the day. Like, great. You know, so you showed me I can't trust you. There are a lot of people I can trust, and that's fine. I'll focus on
Yeah.
those relationships.
Have you been able to like have a tip or trick on how to really distinguish between those people that you open up to and allow deeply into your life and those who you're a little bit more reserved around?
Time. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm not that great at it, obviously. I've been burned a lot of times.
No, but you've had the
And
time to learn that a lot of people haven't.
yeah, and I like to see, like I said, a lot of people aren't that nice, whatever, but I do like to see that, like, the good in humanity, like, there are
Yeah.
so many times where people do little things and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you just restored my faith in humanity," you know? I
Yeah.
like to see the good in people, so I hope to see the good in people, but you need to give them time to show you who they are, and sometimes it's not readily apparent, and sometimes what you think you are getting is very different from the truth. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's a nice, pleasant surprise.
I think maybe that's the lesson in it all is that you're going to be shocked either way sometimes with people. So maybe it just is about dipping your toes in before going full throttle and allowing yourself to really get to know someone. I feel like I read it somewhere that you should always kind of be weary of people who open up too quickly, like too soon. And I do kind of see where they're coming from in that advice, because I feel like when you don't really know someone yet and someone's opening up to you, it's sort of a red flag sometimes. Do you feel like that too?
It depends. Because that potentially is how they treat your private information too. And
Yeah,
some people just aren't that private, and that's
it's
okay,
true.
as long as you understand that they're not gonna have that natural instinct of, "Oh, I shouldn't talk about this." So you have to be a little more careful of what you tell them, not because it's necessarily malicious, but they just have placed different values on their privacy than you.
No, I love that. Okay, last question. And yeah, I'm interested in hearing your response to this. But if you could go back and give your younger Meredith self a piece of advice or some words of wisdom, now having grown up and having kids and a marriage and all these life experiences that you probably never would have anticipated having, what would you tell her?
Always look to the actions. Actions speak louder than words. People will say anything they think you want to hear. Look at what they're doing.
Mic drop. I love it. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us, Meredith. Thank you for all of this wisdom. And I mean, we see it on the show, but I'm so glad to be able to really like dive deeper and just hear all of your tips and tricks and advice that I do think is going to help a lot of people.
So much fun chatting with you.
You're so sweet to join us. Before you go, tell us where we can go to follow along with you, with your businesses, anything we can do to support.
Okay, well, we've got meredithmarks.com and meredithmarkscaviar.com. Twitter is Meredith Marks 0. Instagram and TikTok are both Meredith Marks. And follow and like.
Amazing. Everyone, go support Meredith. To all those listening, watching, thank you for joining us on the shift. Don't forget to subscribe. Let us know what you think of this episode, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.